Yes, it's been a wild couple days, but some amazing things have happened, and we're still preparing for what, another 60 days or so until Trump officially takes office. Uh, I think people will be distracted attention too to what happens on January 6th, but it's definitely not as big, not anything to really worry about, except for maybe some distractions, some protests, et cetera, et cetera. I wanted to thank my friend Lou Collins, who had me on her show. The Liberty Tactics was on there twice. I'm going to get those up here on this channel at some point. But thank you, Lou, for staying on top of this and for being such a great friend. Really appreciate that. And as we move on here, I want to see, I think the first thing I want to look at is Trump's impressive popular vote count and how all of this goes back to say there's just no way Biden got 81 million votes in 2020. It's just crazy. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. But here's where it stands. I know I've been hearing that the Republicans are going to get the House at 218, but right now it stands at 214. It looks good, but it's still at 214 for the House. Republicans will have control more than likely. The Senate, they already have that with 53. If you count J.D. Vance as the vice president, I guess that would be 54. But then they have to do a runoff with J.D. Vance's Senate seat position. So I'm not sure how that works. And then there's a couple other people that are probably going to end up in Trump's cabinet or on Trump's team. So we may lose a few more seats either in the Senate or in the House there too. As long as they can keep the majority, I'm all good with it. But here's the main thing that really counts here. President Trump currently sitting at 75,120,996,000 votes for the popular votes. That's the total votes. That is more than he got. It's about a million more so far than he got in 2020, and all probably about the close to 10 million more than he got in 2016. So that is great news. And those votes, they're still counting, of course. Arizona looks like they're at 95%. New Mexico or Nevada is at 97. Utah is only at 87. I don't know how that's possible, but okay. So there's still other votes to come in, and California's only at 76. And Kamala ran away with that one. 7.7 million votes. Oh, what a horrible, horrible travesty. Horrible state there. And New York, I always like to check in on New York here, even though they're at 97%. Trump got so far is 3.4 million in New York, and in New Jersey about 2 million there. So pretty close by any standards, I would say. And there's a lot of states that are close where Kamala almost won, even just by within a couple 100,000 votes in some cases. So it's not as red. The red wave is rising, but eventually a wave has to come crashing down. That will happen at some point, as we've seen before. Waves rise and they fall. It's just the natural progression of things. It's just the way the world works. Nothing lasts forever. So enjoy it now. Enjoy this moment now. Enjoy your hair now too. Okay, well, then let's go take a look at Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I did see something about Ron Paul. I did want to see if there's any news about Ron Paul, but Kennedy posted this awesome video. And this video, you cannot find this on Trump's YouTube channel. So I don't know where the source, I don't know where this video came from, but it's all over the place. RFK Jr. has posted. It's about 6 minutes or so. Definitely, maybe I should just play it. I'm just going to play it. Maximize this. See the inequality, 720, 720. Well, I added it to my channel too, but I'm going to play it here. Here we go.
If we don't have free speech, then we just don't have a free country. It's as simple as that. If this most fundamental right is allowed to perish, then the rest of our rights and liberties will topple Just like dominoes, one by one, they'll go down.
Maybe it's an order.
That's why today I'm announcing my plan to shatter the left-wing censorship regime and to reclaim the right to free speech for all Americans. And reclaim is a very important word in this case because they've taken it away. In recent weeks, bombshell reports have confirmed that a sinister group of deep state bureaucrats, Silicon Valley tyrants, left-wing activists, and depraved corporate news media have been conspiring to manipulate and silence the American people. They have collaborated to suppress vital information on everything from elections to public health. The censorship cartel must be dismantled and destroyed, and it must happen immediately. And here's my plan. First, within hours of my inauguration, I will sign an executive order banning any federal department or agency from colluding with any organization, business, or person to censor, limit, categorize, or impede the lawful speech of American citizens. I will then ban federal money from being used to label domestic speech as mis or disinformation. And I will begin the process of identifying and firing every federal bureaucrat who has engaged in domestic censorship, directly or indirectly, whether they are the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Health, Human Services, the FBI, the DOJ, no matter who they are. Second, I will order the Department of Justice to investigate all parties involved in the new online censorship regime, which is absolutely destructive and terrible, and to aggressively prosecute any and all crimes identified. These include possible violations of federal civil rights law, campaign finance laws, federal election law, securities law, and antitrust laws, the Hatch Act, and a host of other potential criminal, civil, regulatory, and constitutional offenses. To assist in these efforts, I am urging House Republicans to immediately send preservation letters, and we have to do this right now, to the Biden administration, the Biden campaign, and every Silicon Valley tech giant, ordering them not to destroy evidence of censorship. Third, upon my inauguration as president, I will ask Congress to send a bill to my desk revising Section 230 to get big online platforms out of censorship business. From now on, digital platforms should only qualify for immunity protection under Section 230 if they meet high standards of neutrality, transparency, fairness, and non-discrimination. We should require these platforms to increase their efforts to take down unlawful content such as child exploitation and promoting terrorism, while dramatically curtailing their power to arbitrarily restrict lawful speech. Fourth, we need to break up the entire toxic censorship industry that has arisen under the false guise of tackling so-called mis- and disinformation. The federal government should immediately stop funding all nonprofits and academic programs that support this authoritarian project. If any U.S. university is discovered to have engaged in censorship activities or election interferences in the past, such as flagging social media content for removal of blacklisting, those universities should lose federal research dollars and federal student loan support for a period of 5 years and maybe more. We should also enact new laws laying out clear criminal penalties for federal bureaucrats who partner with private entities to do an end run around the Constitution and deprive Americans of their First, Fourth, and Fifth Amendment rights. In other words, deprive them of their vote. And once you lose those elections, and once you lose your borders like we have, you no longer have a country. Furthermore, to confront the problems of major platforms being infiltrated by legions of former deep staters and intelligence officials, there should be a 7-year cooling off period before any employee of the FBI, CIA, NSA, DNI, DHS, or DOD is allowed to take a job at a company possessing vast quantities of U.S. user data. Fifth, the time has finally come for Congress to pass a digital Bill of Rights. This should include a right to digital due process. In other words, government officials should need a court order to take down online content, not send information requests such as the FBI was sending to Twitter. Furthermore, when users of big online platforms have their content or accounts removed, throttled, shadow banned, or otherwise restricted, no matter what name they use, they should have the right to be informed that it's happening, the right to a specific explanation of the reason why, and the right to a timely appeal. In addition, all users over the age of 18 should have the right to opt out of content moderation and curation entirely and receive an unmanipulated stream of information if they so choose. The fight for free speech is a matter of victory or death for America and for the survival of Western civilization itself. When I am president, this whole rotten system of censorship and information control will be ripped out of the system at large. There won't be anything left. By restoring free speech, we'll begin to reclaim our democracy and save our nation. Thank you, and God bless America.
Wow, that was great. Now, that must be an older one. For some reason, I thought it was something new, but because Trump has not posted anything new, any new videos that I've seen so far since he won. And I guess at some point, the videos will move to the official White House YouTube channel. Boy, those were some great times. Those are some great four years. And Trump posted a lot of stuff there. There was a lot of live roundtables, press conferences, speakings, etc., etc. So looking forward to 4 more years of that. I am feeling the withdrawal a little bit from not having any more rallies. So that's what some of the bad news, but that's okay. You know, we got plenty of those if you ever want to go back and watch them. They're all on Trump's YouTube channel. So we'll see where the future holds, where the future goes. Now let's go look at Truth Social, because Trump has been posting a few things there. A few of his, he's starting to name some cabinet members, things like that. So good stuff. This one is, what is that? What is this? Oh, I get it. Okay. Let's continue. That's awesome. Everybody's getting into it. What's this? There's a victory. And then, so he has announced he is appointing Chairman Elise Stefanik to serve in the cabinet as the United States ambassador to the United Nations. He also has, what's his name, Lee Zeldin. I'm pleased to announce that the highly respected former congressman from New York, Lee Zeldin, will be appointed to serve as the administrator of the United States Environmental Protective Agency, the EPA. Interesting there. And Anthony Scaramucci is a major loser who was fired from the administration after only 11 days for his insane brother from another mother interview with Chris Cuomo, then with CNN. Great job by Joe K. So maybe I do want to watch him get destroyed a little bit, as Trump would say. It's about 3 minutes. Why not?
Coarseness to some of the rhetoric. There was some threatening suggestions to people related to being political adversaries and so on and so forth. And I hope we can put that rhetoric aside and we can move forward and think about what we're going to do as a country to unify the country and make the people in the country, particularly the lower and middle income people in the country, more prosperous.
The rhetoric got heated everywhere. You got pretty heated, Anthony, at times.
Look, Joe, how did I get heated? What did I say, Joe?
About Trump?
Yeah, what did I say? I said I repeated what he was saying. I said this is wrong.
Anthony,
Come on, Joe.
you have have had an utter disdain for Trump. You'll always be welcome at the table of legacy media and have people nodding as you trash Trump. That's always going to happen. But aren't you the slightest bit embarrassed or at least humbled about how wrong you were about the feeling of most Americans, let me finish, and for enthusiastically supporting a candidate who a majority of people thought had no business being anywhere near the Oval Office? And you're a Republican, and you saw that all the different policies that she was talking about are anathema to what you thought your whole life, and yet you went along with it. Do you ever eat any crow, or not even a little crow wing, really like a little capon? Or you just, I mean, Michael Avenatti could still be on TV trashing Trump. You'll always find a place on TV. If he wasn't in prison, he'd still be on CNN running for president with Brian Stelter. Just give me a little bit, Anthony, about how wrong you were.
Loving this.
Joe, first of all, I immediately put out a congratulatory tweet. They won, we lost. In the immortal words of Barry Diller when he lost a Paramount deal. Next, Joe, what would you like me to do? Do you want me to get on bended knee before you?
No, I thought you were going to start that it's going to,
that's not even what America is about, Joe. We have a violent disagreement about lots of things related to Trump's personality. You like Trump. I was up close to Trump. I got to see the ugliest of what he is. And by the way, Joe, it's not just me. There were 40 of us that worked for the president that warned people. So
I think he's been very good for your. I think he's been very good for your career, Anthony. I think he's been incredibly good. You're here, are you not? And you're going to be welcome anywhere you want to go. I think he's been very good for you, and you'll be able to live off this for another 4 years.
Damn,
Joe. Why don't you calm down? Why don't you calm down a second, Joe? We know each other a long time. Are you saying that you and I can't disagree on somebody's personality? Is that what you're saying? And you're saying what I'm saying in terms of identifying those features and traits of the personality. You don't see those too, but you're choosing to ignore them?
I guess 75 million people looked at everything you looked at and decided that there were other things that.
But there were 67 million people. I know there were, Joe. That's what makes America, Joe. That's what makes America, Joe. But you're saying to me that stuff that I was saying wasn't factually true. If somebody's saying they're going to use the American military to go after their political adversaries, and I say, geez, that sounds very un-American to somebody like me.
Is that what he said, Vivek?
No, that is not what he said. Vivek's going to get him. Oh, too bad we didn't have that comment. That would be great. Wow. Okay. Yeah, he did get destroyed by Joe Kernan, whoever that is. Oh, I really want that book there. Trump taps Tom Homan as border czar. That's 11 minutes. Previewing foreign policy under Trump's leadership. Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good. Trump's going to deal with all of that stuff. Ainsley live in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina on Veterans Day. So we're just enjoying it, taking it in. Liz Wheeler's got some interesting stuff to say. Trump is president-elect for 2 days. Stock markets hit record high. Migrant caravan at our border dissolves. Hamas calls for end of war. Bitcoin hits record high. Putin ready to end Ukraine war. Qatar kicks out Hamas leaders. European Union will buy U.S. gas, not Russian gas. Putin will sell oil in U.S. dollars. Zelensky phones Trump and Elon. NYC mayor ends vouchers for illegals. Mexico to stop migrants at U.S. border. China wants to work peacefully with us. Big U.S. company to move out of China. I repeat, Trump has been president-elect for 2 days. And that is all stuff that I guess Biden could take credit for since he's technically the president right now. So did he hire? It's like Trump is running the Biden administration at this point. And maybe that's because there is some truth to, gotta get that flag. Maybe that's because there is some truth to what a lot of people think, who is really in charge, who has really been running the country for the last 4 years. But I don't know. We know who's in the White House, and we know who is going to be in the White House very soon. It's interesting that Trump's wife has declined to meet with Jill Biden. That's pretty interesting, too. They're not 100% sure why. It could be a bunch of different reasons. from nefarious to scheduling to there's no need since Trump's wife has already been in the White House. She knows what it looks like. She knows what to do. We will see. Maybe she doesn't want to look at some of the nonsense they probably have in the White House right now, rainbows and all. I believe that is probably about it. Okay, there is something here that I did want to get to. I'm probably going to end it with this here. Well, actually, no, let me go and see before I get to, because there is some news about Trump's court cases. But before I get to that, I do want to see if there's anything else that RFK Jr. is posting. So that is the pinned post there from November 11th, it looks like. Or no,
We don't have free
November
speech.
9th. Okay, this is from November 11th. RFK Jr. This is all that remains of my dad's beloved Democratic Party. Neoliberal elites debating political theory and election strategy rather than values and vision. Democrats need to change one thing about their party, everything. Start by repudiating globalism, war, surveillance, and censorship, and try to shed their contempt for working Americans. How long is this? Do I really want to hear this? Probably not. Doctors blast Trump and RFK remarks on fluorides vaccines. Wow. Okay. Maybe I do want to hear that. Yeah, I do want to hear that.
Well, look, I think that
Let me start
I think
from the beginning.
I mean, we were talking in the break about, there are a lot of Americans who are concerned about health and safety, whether regulations are really keeping up with the information, whether or not their food is safe, their water is safe. That is being co-opted by people who want to make a conspiracy out of everything. And what do you think about how that should be addressed? I mean, even after all of this.
Well, look, I think progressives make a mistake when we just roll our eyes and just kind of throw everybody in the same, crazy bucket when people ask tough questions. I think you have low trust voters and you have high trust voters. And the low trust voters are also on the progressive side. You have voters who say, listen, all these experts have been telling me stuff that turned out not to be true. They gave me a housing bubble that wiped out all of my assets. They had my kid go fight in a war that was dumb. I don't believe everything that we were told during COVID served my child well in his or her school. So you do have people who have said, look, experts have let us down. And so I think that the mistake we make is then here comes RFK Jr. on the nutty train. And all we do is throw rocks at him, as opposed to saying, you know what? If there's evidence, there's been some corporate capture, some of these agencies. As Democrats, we should go after that. We should actually grab this mantle. We want to make sure that kids are safety. We don't necessarily, brush moms aside if they, I don't know, I'm concerned. I think progressives are making a big mistake. We have left these parental concerns for the right wing to exploit. And I think that we should take them seriously, but not give into the crazy.
I do think that you're right about that.
All right. Not get into the crazy. So it's all the crazies this, but there's nothing crazy about the stuff that RFK Jr. is doing and what he's posting.
I mean, we were talking in the break about.
Anyways, I'll leave that where it is. See if there's anything else. Corporate media is a propaganda vessel for Big Pharma and the war machine. That's from the 10th. And yes, Joe Rogan veterans are the most deserving of benefiting from psychedelic therapy. Interesting. And between 2006 and 2019, 9 out of 10 FDA commissioners went on to work for the pharmaceutical companies they were in charge of regulating. This is what Trump was just talking about. Approximately 65% of the FDA's drug review budget comes directly from the pharmaceutical industry. And there it is. Boom. There's Fauci. All right. Well, I think that is enough. We must stop poisoning our kids. Oh, there's 40 seconds here.
What I think is a necessary, I have a poor understanding of Trump's proposed structure to optimize what I think is a necessary healthcare reformation.
One of the reasons, not the only reason, we spend more per capita on healthcare is that we're actively poisoning our kids in what we put in their cereal, in their food, and the corporations are poisoning us. Donald Trump putting Bobby Kennedy into the administration and on the transition team will be one of the greatest steps forward in protecting American health. For example, In Japan, 3% of kids at age 15 are chronically obese or overweight. 3%.
Yep.
50% of our kids are chronically obese or overweight by the time they're 15. And it's not because just they're moving less. It's because what's in our food.
I have a poor understanding of
that's
Trump's maybe proposed structure
so that's
to optimize
that.
what I think is a
Good.
necessary healthcare reformation.
One of the reasons, not the only reason, we spend more
It
per
is,
capita.
it's about conversating and talking like that. It's not something I can do. I just can't do it, but I'm glad that there are people out there who can do it. All right, last one here. Then we got the news about Trump's court
Dr. Paul.
cases. So I do want to get to this. Rand Paul. Where does Rand Paul stand here?
We need to find out answers about the pandemic.
Yes.
I need answers on Epstein. I mean, where do you even begin, Dr. Paul?
We are very hopeful that Robert Kennedy will have a big influence in the administration. We're very hopeful that whoever will be head of Health and Human Services will now reveal the documents I've been trying to get for 3 years. NIH and HHS have refused to turn over the documents as to why Wuhan got this research money and why it wasn't screened as dangerous research. Those documents exist and they won't give them to me. I think a friendly Trump administration will. I'm looking forward to getting those, mainly because we need to try to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Hear, hear. We need to find out answers about the pandemic.
That's good.
I need answers on Epstein. I mean, where do you even begin,
All right.
Dr. Paul?
Let's see.
We are very hopeful that Robert Kennedy will
That's
have a
good
big
stuff
influence in
there.
the administration.
I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. I do want to see if there is anything from Ron Paul, because I'm hearing some stuff, but and wouldn't that be great to get Ron Paul on board? Oh, here it is. Make money for. I did want to see this.
2 days after Donald Trump became the first American since Grover Cleveland to win non-consecutive presidential elections, the Federal Reserve announced a 0.25% cut in interest rates. Following this announcement, the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, held a press conference where he said that he would not comply with any presidential request that he step down before his term ends in May of 2026. Powell claimed that the president lacks the legal authority to fire the Fed chairman. So, if President Trump tells Chairman Powell, "You're fired," Powell could bring suit asking a court to review Trump's action. President Trump and Chairman Powell are at odds over President Trump's desire to require the Federal Reserve to consult with the president before changing interest rates or taking other significant actions. Powell is likely to do all he can to convince Congress to reject any legislation giving the president any type of official role in setting monetary policy. After all, Chairman Powell is so protective of Fed autonomy that he opposes auditing the Fed on the grounds that it would threaten the Fed's independence, even though there is nothing in the Audit the Fed legislation giving the president or Congress any new authority over the Fed's conduct of monetary policy. Requiring the Fed to consult with the president regarding monetary policy would likely increase price inflation and dollar devaluation. Politicians usually like low interest rates because they associate low rates with economic growth. Politicians also want the Fed to keep rates low so the federal government can keep racking up huge amounts of debt. Without a central bank that is ready, willing, and able to monetize the federal debt, the welfare warfare state would not exist. Despite the claims of Chairman Powell and other central bank apologists, the Fed has never been free of political pressure. Presidents were trying to influence the Federal Reserve long before Donald Trump began posting mean tweets about Jerome Powell. Requiring the Fed to consult with the president would at least make the president's effort to influence monetary policy open and transparent. President Trump and other Fed critics, such as Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, think they are more capable of determining the correct interest rates than the Fed. This ignores the fact that interest rates are the price of money and like all prices are shaped by a variety of constantly changing factors. When the Fed manipulates interest rates, it distorts the signals sent to investors. The result is the boom-bust business cycle. The fiat system is also responsible for rising income inequality and the decline of the dollar's purchasing power, which has lowered most Americans' standard of living. President Trump should work to eliminate the need for the Fed to keep interest rates low. He can do this by fighting for massive spending cuts, starting with the military-industrial complex. He should also push Congress to pass the Audit the Fed bill. Additionally, President Trump should support legalizing all competing currencies. The forthcoming tax bill should include a provision exempting precious metals and cryptocurrencies from capital gains taxes. The key to making America great again is to make money free again.
Nice. Very good. Very good. Absolutely loving that. Absolutely loving that. And I hope they can figure out a place for Ron Paul in here somewhere. This would be great. But this could be a big standoff. Trump doesn't like to be played with like this. And Powell already coming out and say if Trump fires him or asks him to step down, that he won't. That is a big deal. And that does show you everything you really need to know about the Federal Reserve Bank right now. And what good have they done? So you need somebody in there like Ron Paul who can really advise President Trump on this. And I hope those conversations are happening behind closed doors. And then I hope Rand Paul's conversations about COVID are also happening. And I know with Kennedy in there's a pretty good chance that those conversations are happening. All right. Then lastly, let's go in here. This is the new news about Trump's one of those cases.
Based on the Associated Press saying this a moment ago, the judge has delayed a ruling on whether or not to dismiss President-elect Donald Trump's criminal conviction. These are 34 counts that came in at the end of May 30th. And the former president's been fighting it ever since. And the judge is going to sentence him prior to the election, then delayed it given the election itself. And so this is the ruling here. Just reading from the AP, a New York State judge has paused proceedings in the already decided criminal case on charges stemming from the hush money paid to a porn star. All right. The document reads, the judge had been set to decide by today whether or not the conviction could be vacated due to the ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court midsummer back in July on presidential immunity. Trump had also been scheduled to be sentenced on November 26. So this now is a whole new ball of wax. Ms. Dana.
Let's get Andy McCarthy up and he can explain to us what this means. Is this kicking the can down the road? What does it mean, Andy?
Well, I think without having read it yet, Dana, my sense is that he's kind of cutting to the chase of what we discussed before, which is that, you know, you could have a situation where he made a ruling and then allowed on immunity and then allowed time for Trump to appeal it, which would tie it up for a number of years, because once he was president and was in office, they would be able to suspend the proceedings. It sounds like Judge Merchan is just leaping ahead to that conclusion and suspending proceedings while Trump is in office.
So this means when he's 83, the case comes back?
Yeah, well, if they deign to bring it back, I mean, look, it's a ridiculous case. There's a lot of reasons why it should be thrown out on appeal. Immunity is important to us for immediate purposes only because it's the only issue that's instantly appealable. But there's a bunch of reasons why this case should be thrown out. And I would hope that there'd be a good chance once President Trump is out of office as a twice elected American president, that at the age of 83, the New York authorities would decide that, you know, this case was already, whatever it was worth to them, they've gotten whatever value there was out of it. It was really only brought in the first place to try to prevent him from being elected. And since it didn't succeed, I think it should land on the dustbin of history, but that's just my view of it.
Andy, this is just, okay, you know, I have good, dumb questions. So does he have to continue to...
Check this out. I'm going to show you how I afforded this car. Okay, you ready? All right, $118.
Use private lawyers for this, or can the White House counsel's office take over?
Well, it's not necessarily either or, Dana, because he's got personal interests and there could also be public interests. So his personal interest is obviously his criminal liability. The public interest is whether having the proceedings interferes with his ability to carry out his constitutional duties as president. So since there's two sets of interests, there's no problem with having, two sets of lawyers who work in their lanes on how this all plays out.
So, Andy, what I'm hearing you say, give me a course correction if necessary, is that in the year 2029, when this case is brought back or continued, let's say, he will stand a very good chance at the appellate level to have this case appealed and potentially thrown out. Is that what you're saying?
That's right, Bill. And, you would pick up, I presume, again, I haven't read it yet, but I presume you would pick up right where we are now. And where we are now is we have a pending immunity issue. And as we saw in the Washington federal case, immunity, because it has to be fully litigated before you do anything else in a criminal case, or at least that's the way it's supposed to happen, it could take a long time just to sort that out before you get to all the other issues in the case.
Well, I'm just, it's kind of letting it all sink in. You think that, I don't know Judge Merchan. I don't really know New York sort of internal politics here, but Letitia James, she was full steam ahead, and you made a point in the 9 a.m. hour that she does have political ambitions. I don't think this judge does, but does a ruling like this keep him in the good graces of the judicial teams around New York, sort of his social circles?
I've thought, Dana, from the beginning that he's the kind of guy who, even when it's obvious he's made a misstep, he has a hard time admitting it. Like it was clear, for example, when he let Stormy Daniels testify that was a catastrophe that he shouldn't have allowed to happen. And instead of saying that was a mistake on my part, he blamed everybody else in the room for allowing it to happen. So he's not a guy who easily admits that he was wrong. Seems to me that this ruling allows him to continue that record. Basically, he doesn't have to deal with Trump's claims of error. He doesn't have to deal with the immunity issue. He's the one who let the potentially immunized evidence into the case. Everybody on the planet knew that the Supreme Court was looking at this issue, and there was a chance that they were going to rule in President Trump's favor. So they were playing with fire by allowing this evidence into the case. He's the guy who let it in. So it seems to me that by freezing things in place and not having to thereby grapple with Trump's claims of error or the immunity question, he gets to basically not admit error, and everybody gets to carry on.
You just wonder down the road, Andy, what does the world look like? What's the country look like? Merchan is 62 years old. He could retire before this case is finalized.
Yeah, but it's such a silly case. I mean, the whole thing is just preposterous. And, the fact that they brought it 7 or 8 years after most of the facts in the case happened, and it was brought by a district attorney who ordinarily pleads felonies down to misdemeanors. Here he took a nothing and it blew it into 34 felonies. The whole thing was so unabashedly political. I think you have to hope that 4 years from now, with a long look at it, people will, instead of saying, we got to get that case back on track, they'll say, how did we ever let that happen in the first place?
You think, Dana, about this election and the results that we just saw, and heck, I mean, cases like this may have contributed to the drubbing.
I said on election night, it wasn't necessarily in spite of the lawfare that he won. It might have been also because of it. And National Review's senior writer, Noah Rothman, is on set with us now. And you've done a lot of thinking about the election results a week ago today. And wonder what you think about that in terms of the Democrats thinking that the legal cases were going to sink Trump, and they didn't.
Well, they thought that the legal cases were going to sink Trump as an adjunct of his personality, of perhaps his biggest liability for most voters, who exit polling suggests don't find him some don't find him likable. They voted for him anyway. He's less popular than his Democratic opponent, who he beat. And there's an element of, for those voters, the majority makers in that coalition, who are saying to themselves, well, gosh, the alternative to this is just less palatable than a Donald Trump presidency for all his faults and flaws. I would like to ask Andy, to the extent that he can speculate, what extent or what Donald Trump is going to do about these outstanding indictments against him at the federal level. Is he going to simply withdraw the Jack Smith's office, to withdraw the special prosecutor and live under indictment, or move forward and pardon himself? Because if the latter course is what he moves forward with, that could reignite a lot of the opposition to him as a person, personally.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know one way or the other, but it's the ball's in his court.
I get the sense that what's going to happen is the Biden-Harris administration is going to dismiss the Trump cases. They've already sort of laid the groundwork for that. Judge Chutkan has set, I think, December 2nd as a date for Jack Smith to get back to her on how he sees the case proceeding in the future. I think what he'll come back with is a motion to dismiss the case. My sense of this is that, and I continue to think this even though the White House pushes back the other way, I think that President Biden is going to pardon his son, and that he will get a lot of criticism if that's done in a vacuum, because it's a form of self-dealing, and he also said he wouldn't do it, so he'll look terrible. But I think if it's pitched to the country as kind of a clemency package, where we're turning the page from the Trump prosecutions and turning the page from the Hunter.
You have to pardon your son. I would not blame Biden for that at all. If you're going to pardon anybody, it should be your son, I would think. But we'll see. I'd pardon mine if I had one. If he needed it, unless he killed somebody or something.
Prosecution, the country will take it a lot better. So I think it's going to be the Biden-Harris administration that gets rid of the Trump prosecutions, rather than having Trump have to do it himself by getting his Justice Department to try to dismiss it.
Do you think they would cut that deal, Andy?
I do. Yep. I don't see who's the loser in it, though.
I do too.
I'm Steve Doocy. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Just looking at Ron, because I haven't really been keeping up with Ron Paul, but I've been very curious to see what he thinks about President Trump coming into office and all of that. So just looking at something he has posted, it's about a 2-minute clip here. After what the DOJ did to Trump, he has every right to reform it. So he's talking about the DOJ, the Department of Justice. So I will end this right here. I'll just play. It's only about 2 minutes.
We want to start off with an article dealing with the DOJ. There's need a lot of reform there. All I can think of when you and I talked about this DOJ, it makes me think of crooked cops.
Yeah.
And that is so bad.
People that are running the Department of Justice are terrified of justice. So this is the political piece. Many in government are worried about Trump's return. At DOJ, they're terrified. I go to the next one. A collective sense of dread has taken hold at the Department of Justice. Talk about waking up in a good mood when you see that.
Yeah.
Which drew Donald Trump's rage like no other part of the federal government during his campaign. Well, I wonder why that was. They waged lawfare on him for 4 years. The whole Russiagate thing was within the Department of Justice, the FBI. Remember all those, the memos and everything? They were at war with him for 4 years, and now Politico acts like it's somehow, not appropriate for him to be a little irritated.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention, though, is about, the coup that went on in the middle of all this.
Yes.
And because, Democrats, they believe in democracy in a different way than we suggest you should believe in it. But they believe in, having a vote. But most people now consider that the Democrats in their infighting did a coup and they got rid of Biden and forced him out. And even he seemed to be surprised.
Yeah.
You mean I'm not president anymore? I'm not going to run for president anymore.
So here's one section from the same Politico article that I think is indicative of what they're trying to say. So Trump's impact may be most pronounced in Justice's National Security Division, which he blames for the Russia-related woes of his first term, as well as places like the Civil Rights Division, long a target of hard-right lawyers closest to Trump. So you have a lot of characterization in this sentence. It's a very loaded sentence. But what it doesn't say, it's not that he blames the National Security Division of Justice for the Russia-related woes. That's where it originated. They created it. They cooked it up out of whole cloth, and it was a pack of lies. So saying he's not really right to be upset about this is absurd.
It's all been a pack of lies. Well, that was great. So yeah, so for me, the red wave really began with Ron Paul. And I think 2008 is when I really I started hearing Ron Paul, looking into Ron Paul in the Fed, learning about all that stuff. He was anti-war, one of the only Republicans who would speak out against the Iraq war, Afghanistan war, and it was a big part of the reason why I wanted to be a part of the In the Fed movement. I never switched to libertarian. I never really wanted to be a part of any party. I still don't consider myself a part of any party, any political party. But the red wave for me did begin there. It began with Ron Paul, and it is peaking. I hope it hasn't peaked yet, but it is right up here with President Trump. And I hope it will continue to keep going up and up and up. But we know eventually, like all good things, it must come to an end, and the red wave will come crashing down at some point. Let's just ride it out. Let's ride it out and let's enjoy it for the next 4 years. But let's also be critical. Let's also make sure that we're not blinded. And I don't believe people are, but I want to make sure we're not blinded by Trump or by Kennedy or by any person. So we all know that this all begins and ends with God, with Jesus Christ, who makes all of these things happen. And whether Trump were to have won or lost, it is all in God's plan. And it's all a part of the big plan here. So while we're here, let's do some good. Let's remind people what this life is all about, which is about Jesus Christ. It begins and ends there. And with that said, this is episode 99, second longest running series I've ever done. The Gray Stage would definitely be, I've never done the Gray Stage like this here, where it's me talking for 99 shows. But if you made it this far, thank you. God bless you. And remember, Jesus Christ loves you, and so do I. Until next time, we will be back very soon. 4 years. 4 more years of us.